right? Okay. So I'm going to be talking about Tarzan today, my favorite Disney movie. And Tarzan starts out in the middle of South Africa, and there's waters raging, and this man and woman are trying to protect their baby, and they end up shipwrecked on the coast. And so they try to find shelter, and they build a tree house. And they end up getting killed by a jaguar named Sabor, and he also kills the baby of the gorillas that later find him and raise him. And my favorite scene is where Tarzan follows the three young gorillas around his age, and he follows them because he wants to be bros. And they tell him that they're not going to be able to hang out with him unless he gets an elephant hair. And Tantor says, "Yeah, a hair." And then he's like, "A hair." And he's like, "What kind of hair? A hair?" And then he's like, "Yeah, an elephant hair." And Tarzan's like, "Well, all right." So he just like, he runs and jumps off this really high cliff, and he belly flops onto the water, and he lands on a hippo. He floats down. And so the scene flips to Tantor, who's inching into the water. He's kind of weary of it. He's like, "Is this water sanitary? It looks questionable to me." And his mother's like, "Tantor." And he says, "But what about piranhas and bacteria?" And so he's still kind of inching in, and his mother's like, "Tantor, there are no piranhas in Africa."
"Don't tell the kid that. Of course there are piranhas in Africa."
And so Tarzan's got to get this elephant hair, so he's swimming along, and he comes up in the circle of elephants, and he's like, and they're like, "Piranha!" So they stampede, and they're running away. Got to get away from this piranha, which is actually a child, so whatever. And Tarzan gets in trouble because he started it, and he feels like that he's hated by the gorillas that are around, like his family. And he sits down, and he's putting blood all over his body, and he feels bad about himself. And so he's different, and he's, the hairless wonder. And he's trying to cover himself up, and his mother's like, "No, let's get this mud off." And she says, "You're just like me, you have eyes." And she wipes away the mud, a nose, and continues to take the mud off of him. And she puts her hand on his heart, and she goes, "What's here?" And he's like, "My heart." And she takes his hand, and she puts it on hers, and he's like, "Your heart." And she goes, "See, they beat the same." She goes, "We're the same." So he grows up, and he meets Jane, who has drawn this baby baboon, and the baby baboon is a tattletale. So he goes and tells all the other baboons, and they get mad, so they run after her, and they take her boot, and it's raining, and Tarzan saves her. They're sitting on this tree and on this limb, and he has this thing about hands, and they do this cute little hand thing, and then she talks to him, and she's like, "I'm Jane." And he says, "I'm Jane." And she's like, "No, I'm Jane." And he says, "No, I'm Jane." And she says, "Jane?" And then he's like, "Jane? Oh, I see. No. And so he's mimicking everything that she does. And so anyway, she's like, "Can you take me to my camp?" And so he grabs her up, and she goes, "Why can't we walk?" And so he goes, "Why can't we walk?" And I never noticed that. Anyway, so he meets Jane, he falls in love, and he learns how to speak. And Jane and her father and their guide are actually there to find gorillas. And his family is gorillas, and he wants to please Jane because he's in love with her. So he takes her to his family, and eventually he decides to go away with Jane because they're only there for a short time. And Clayton ends up trapping them at the boat and putting his family, all the gorillas, in cages. So Tarzan has to break free. He runs and takes out his family, and he ends up staying. And Jane's sad to leave, so she's in the boat and she jumps out and she ends up running to him and kissing him, and she's like, ooh, ooh, ee, that, ooh, which is what Jane had learned from Tarzan, which means Jane stays with Tarzan and the gorilla. And so the moral of this story is that you don't have to cover yourself up. You have to love yourself in order for someone else to love you. And that it's okay to love yourself, and that your family will accept you, and someone else will too.